Yeah. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our BWIT Lunch and Learn. We're always excited for our community to join us, and it's so great to see everybody, all of our participants here today. I'm Christina Smith. I'm the Director of Programs at Tech Birmingham, and at Tech Birmingham, we are a community of tech and tech adjacent organizations, and our purpose is to strengthen the tech ecosystem in the Metro Birmingham area and beyond. We offer programs like this and resources to build our economy and create opportunities for future generations. Today, this program right here, you are joining us for Birmingham Women in Technology. This is an affinity group within our organization that seeks to promote and highlight the role of women in our community and workforce. BWIT is here to provide resources, provide professional and moral support to our members, and to elevate the contributions of the women in our community. We have many other programs. We've got several other affinity groups. We've got an AWS affinity group. And on the 23rd, we are launching our third affinity group, and we would love for you to join us for Tech Tuesday to hear more about Tech Equals. But I'm going to drop in the chat links to our events calendar and to our website and my email. So if you ever have any questions, please reach out to me. We'd love to, help you get involved and connected into this community. I am going to give it to Jessica, or to our leadership team. You guys can all take it away and let us introduce the program today. We're so excited about this.
Okay, great.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you participating and always look forward to seeing everyone virtually and the content. As you know, we're taking suggestions for future planning. We're already up to May with our planning efforts. So if there's something that you'd like, please feel free to chat us, send us an email, and I'm going to turn it over to Ronit to kick today's event off.
Thank you, Jessica. So today we are going to have a great program. This is one-of-a-kind panel discussion with 3 extraordinary leaders, women in our community, and they will share their experience and advice about entrepreneurship. So without further ado, I'm just going to start by introducing our panel. And when I pronounce your name, just wave and say hello. The first one is Ashlee Ammons. She is a president and CEO of iSeek Solutions, a division of Peake Technologies. Ashlee is a highly accomplished business and technology executive with experience in the corporate and entrepreneur sectors. Her journey began in 2007 when she launched iSeek Solutions, a management consulting firm. In 2018, Ashlee launched Peake Technologies, a government contracting firm. Prior to her entrepreneurial career, Ashlee held executive leadership roles in several Fortune 500 companies. In those capacities, she gained the discipline, expertise, and business acumen necessary to lead individuals and teams to achieve extraordinary results. She capitalizes on her extensive knowledge and experience, highly skilled and motivated colleagues, and multi-industry expertise to ensure success for her customers. Ashlee is also a certified project management professional, PMP, and organizational change management practitioner. In 2019, Ashlee was a candidate for the Birmingham Business Journal Small Business CEO Award. She is a graduate of the Small Business, the SBA's Emerging Leaders Program, and served on the executive board of directors for Tech Birmingham, the voice of technology for the region. She was also a member of Mayor Randall Woodfin's transition team and continues to work closely with the City of Birmingham on strategic initiatives. Ashlee is a member of the National Defense Industrial Association and the Tennessee Valley chapter of Women in Defense. Under Amy's leadership, iSeek Solutions and PAC3 Technologies are certified women's business enterprises and women-owned small businesses. Welcome, Annie, to our panel. Next, I'm going to introduce Ashlee. Hi, Ashlee. Ashlee Ammons is a co-founder and president of Mixtroz. Mixtroz meeting and event planning platform was co-founded by Ashlee and her mother, Carrie Schrader. In November 2014, this is a very interesting story, but in November 2014, while living in New York City, Ashlee attended a conference for a networking opportunity during lunch. The event host suggested attendees go up to someone with the same color dot on their name tag. Ashlee deemed that network activity awkward and enjoyed lunch with her smartphone, but made zero connections. So after that, Ashlee shared this experience with her mother, Carrie, who had a very similar experience herself. And the awkwardness of meeting people at live events led Ashlee and Carrie to found Mixtroz. Following a remarkable progress in 2017, Team Mixtroz kicked off 2018 by joining Alabama's prestigious Velocity Accelerator and starring on an episode of A&E's series Rooster and Butch. In May 2018, the duo was selected to pitch to AOL co-founder Steve Case during the Rise of the Rest tour stop in Birmingham, Alabama, and they secured $100,000 investment from Case's Revolution Fund. The team went on to close a $1 million round of funding, making them the 37th and 38th Black female to ever close a $1 million round of funding. Ashlee holds a business degree, a BA degree, in mass communication and public relations from Baldwin Wallace University. Prior to co-founding Mixtroz, Ashlee established a career as an event producer, working with an impressive list of A-listers, including Oprah Winfrey, Leonardo DiCaprio, and Jay-Z, as well as legacy brands like Moet Hennessy and Coca-Cola. Ashlee serves on the executive boards of Tech Birmingham and is an advisor to the Nashville Entrepreneur Center, following her time on the NEC's board. Ashlee is a 2019 Birmingham Business Journal 40 Under 40 recipient, as well as Birmingham 40 Under 40 of the Decade and Business Journal National Rising Star. Ashlee and her mother were named Powerful Women by Entrepreneur magazine on their inaugural list in November 2019. In November 2020, Ashlee was selected among the 100 Black female entrepreneurs and innovators presented with funding, as well as 100 days of resources by Amex, and I Found Women of Color as part of their new 100 of 100 program. Welcome to our program, Ashlee.
Thank you.
And our very last panelist is Taylor Peake. Welcome, Taylor. Taylor launched MotionMobs, a custom software consulting and development firm, at the age of 19, while completing her information system degree from the University of Alabama at Birmingham. Taylor has a strong vision for putting the right teams of people together, equipping them to make an impact in strategically growing companies. Over the last few years, Taylor has participated in the revitalization of downtown Birmingham by purchasing and eventually selling a century-old warehouse building for MotionMobs headquarters. She now owns a 60,000 square foot commercial office building to provide space for Birmingham's growing list of tech companies. In 2017, she testified before the U.S. House of Representatives Small Business Committee on tax reform. She currently sits on boards for the Crisis Center, Alabama Central 6 Development Council, and BBVA. She is past board member for Red Birmingham, which is a place-based revitalization economic development nonprofit working to make the city of Birmingham a more vibrant place. In addition, Taylor is a member of Kiwanis Club of Birmingham, Birmingham Venture Club, and Tech Birmingham. Welcome to our panel. all of you. This is an impressive panel, and we look forward to get started. But before we start with the question, what I'd like, Annie, Ashlee, and Taylor, would you take a moment or two to share a little snippet of what your company is about? What services does your company offer? So we'll start with Annie.
I figured you would start with me. Being named Alan, I'm accustomed to being the first person to have to get started with. So I just want to say hello to everyone today and to thank BWIT, or Birmingham Women in Technology, for allowing me to be on this panel. As I was saying earlier, I don't have a really great story to tell, but it's definitely a story that I think all entrepreneurs would love to hear. So iSeek Solutions is a management consulting firm. Basically, we focus on organizational alignment, which is a discipline that ensures that corporations are doing what they say they're going to do. A lot of people work on strategic plans. They put together, what their objectives are, but they go off and they work on various other projects or initiatives. And so we help people to envision what their objectives are, and then to actually put into practice, making sure that those objectives are realized. And we do that from a couple of different directions, being the strategic planning aspect, program and project management, also leadership and development. And we work on various initiatives that have to do with business process as well.
Thank you, Annie. Ashlee, would you go next?
Yes, hi, thank you guys for having me. So I am the co-founder of a software company called Mixtroz. We are a company that can be used anywhere that 50 or more people are gathered live, and also now virtually. Basically, a few years ago, my mom and I, who's my co-founder, realized that there was an issue with people who go to events to network. Like, everybody wants to go to events to network, yet it turns out as humans, we are pretty bad at it. So we created a software to help streamline the process. So we use technology to improve the world's oldest art form, which is connectivity. And in doing that, we're able to increase engagement and collect data. And we work across primarily events, anything from a trade show to a TEDx, also higher education, and within business enterprises as well.
Thank you. And Ashlee is also a very great public speaker. If you want to ever have a good speaker at your event, she's very good at it. So just look her up. Taylor.
Hi, everyone. My name is Taylor Peake, and my company is called MotionMobs. I started the company 10 years ago, which was 18 months after the inception of the App Store. And so as a company now, 10 years later, we're really focused on helping businesses and investors to understand how to add value to their business through technology. So whether it's an investor who has recently made an investment or a purchase with a company and is trying to figure out how to implement technology into their business, or an entrepreneur who has a business that's either looking to grow through raising funding or preparing for an exit. Our team is designed to help them strategically figure out which technology pieces are going to add the most value, what's the best strategic plan for that, and then to actually implement that software, whether it be a web application or a mobile application or something else. And so my background is in software development. We've got a great team of local consultants and engineers that I'm really grateful to be able to work with.
Thank you. So we'll start with the questions, and at the end of this session, we're going to leave some time for the audience to ask some questions, and I believe Christina is going to make it available through chat or something like that. So when we get to this, we'll get good directions. So we'll start with Annie. When did you realize that you have an entrepreneur spirit? And the second part of the question, what do you think distinguishes between those who have it and those who don't?
So I'm going to start with the second part of the question. I believe that an entrepreneurial spirit can be in anyone. It doesn't necessarily mean that you own a business or that you run a business. I think of it as owning whatever opportunities or challenges are put before you. I am that kind of person. I always was in the business environment, and people would say to me all the time, you should own your own business. So the answer to the second or the first part of the question, I never intended to be an entrepreneur. I kind of got tired of being in the corporate world for various reasons, which I won't share here today, and decided to do some things on my own. And from there, I just morphed into becoming an entrepreneur. But I think it is important to understand that the entrepreneurial spirit says that you are owning whatever it is you're doing. And so I think even as leaders in corporate environment, we should still have that entrepreneurial spirit.
Very good lesson for us. Taylor, what was the driving force behind your motivation to be an entrepreneur?
So I started my company my last semester in college, and the driving force behind the problem that I was interested in was really how quickly mobile technology was impacting businesses, and I really wanted to help businesses understand that better and to be part of that solution. So that specific to my company was the driving force behind it. But I think it's, I definitely agree with what Annie said. I think that it's really important, regardless of the role that you're in, that you're always looking for solutions to problems and using the nature or the intent of an entrepreneurial spirit to help that. I also think that it's great. I've worked with several people over the years who have said, I just don't want to own or be an entrepreneur, but I really enjoy working with startups. And when you're running a small business, it's really great to have someone who's working in operations, or to have some of your first team members who are really dedicated and who are helping you, but who don't as much enjoy being in the founder or the entrepreneurial role.
Thank you. Ashlee, a little bit of a different question for you. So when you started your company, what was your vision, and has it changed over the years?
So when we started the company, I think the vision was just to solve a simple problem. We're co-founders who happened to experience the problem that we felt needed to be solved over the course of the same weekend, and that had to do with how people connect. And we, at the end of the day, I feel like we just cared the most to solve the problem in the way that we were thinking about. When we looked at the market to see other things that were in the market, things were very highly technical, using AI and all these different things to make human connection happen. And my mom and I just kind of realized the best connector of people is humans. And so how can we bring a human-centric focus, something that is made possible by technology, but how can we bring that back to what we're actually trying to do and the basic problem that we're trying to solve? So since inception of Mixtroz, our whole I think ethos has been bias-free connection, and I think that we are still living that to this day.
So I'll follow up with another question, Ashlee. So when you were preparing to become what you do now, how did you do that, and how did you know, okay, I'm ready, I can do it, I can own my business, I can run it?
It took a long time to be ready, honestly. So I am somebody, I do not think of myself as entrepreneurial. I've had to become entrepreneurial out of necessity. So with the way my personality is, my personality type is, I enjoy structure and organization and understanding that you're going to put forth effort, and then you're going to see results from that effort. And in entrepreneurship, none of that really exists. You could put forth a whole heap of effort and not get the results that you're looking for. So that's something that I've had to like grow to become comfortable with as we went through this journey. Honestly, you know, people say to me often, which I don't like, that it's super cute that you started a business with your mom. And I'm like, no, it's not super cute. It's quite strategic, because actually my mom was the person who push the business forward. Like the first year and a half, you know, I was working on Mixtroz nights and weekends, living in New York City, working a full-time job. My mom happened to be taking a sabbatical, and so she had the time to spend in kind of establishing the foundation of what we're doing and keeping that moving day to day. The moment that really made me want to cross over fully is at the end of our first year. So that would have been 2015. My mom was diagnosed with breast cancer. So I would take this moment to remind everybody on the phone to keep their health appointments. Do not cancel them. Do not move them. Keep them on the cadence that you're supposed to have them, because that is the reason that my mom's breast cancer was detected early, and she was able to get that handled very quickly and pretty methodically, and she's cancer-free today. So it was really at that moment, like I saw my mom so gracefully handle this challenging situation. We had just taken on friends and family funding. There were so many things going on with Mixtroz, and then a cancer diagnosis, and she was methodical about getting surgery, going to radiation, keeping the business going. And it was that focus out of a co-founder that made me have to come to the realization, like, there's really no such thing as a half-time founder. You kind of have to be all in, or you got to be all out. And so at that point, I decided to be all in. And so that's really what pushed me forward. So it was more so about what was going on with the team, and, you know, like this idea that we had that we knew was good, and we just wanted to see where it could go. So that's the thing that really made me cross over.
You know, what really caught me is being all in. I like that. And Taylor, we know that we can be great at everything, right? So what skills were the most important for you to master?
I think early on, I had to be really focused on the skill sets that as a team we didn't have. And so, for example, I'm really terrible at marketing. And to understand the landscape of marketing, I really wanted to dig in on the areas that I felt like both our business and then by virtue, me personally was lacking and wanted to look into. And so it was more of when does it make sense to hire? When can the business financially support hiring the skill sets we need? And then what do we need to do to fill in the gaps until we can get to that point? And so I think there's a stage for a lot of entrepreneurs where everyone's wearing a lot of hats, and just figuring out what you're going to learn, how you're going to use those resources, and how you can utilize those until you can get the right people who have really mastered those skill sets in place to help you with those aspects.
And Annie, along with that, what do you think are the top 3 traits and skills that you recommend to any of us, whether we're going to own a business or leaders in our company? What are those top 3 you recommend that we acquire to be prepared or act in this role?
So I think as Ashlee, or Taylor rather, and Ashlee both spoke to, you know, there are certain skill sets that you need for whatever your business venture is. And so you are going to want to fill those gaps, either in yourself or the team that you're building, to make sure you have the expertise to do what you need to do. On the other hand, from an entrepreneurial standpoint, you know, I would say a couple of the things that are really, really important, and Ashlee spoke to this when she said she was working nights and weekends on her company. You need to ensure that you have a lot of stamina. That because getting started, and oftentimes for several years, you have to be all in. And it has to be above and beyond everything else that you have to do in your life. You know, I would also say, as an entrepreneur, when you get to that point where you are actually presenting your product or your service, you really need to have tough skin, because you're probably going to get a lot of rejection and a lot of no's before you get a yes. And don't let that deter you. Just keep moving forward. So those are some of the things that I think that people don't often think about, what it's going to require for them to become an entrepreneur. They think they have a great product or a great service, but it really takes someone who is going to deal with those knocks and being pushed around before you can actually be successful. You have to be that person that pushes things forward.
Ashlee, question about the era that we're in now. So has the epidemic threatened your business? Has it affected you or your employees' mental state? How did you deal with that? How did you survive?
So just to give everybody like the broad strokes of the business. So basically all of 2015, 2016, 2017, most of 2018, we made our business work. We built software without being technical founders, which again, I have to give all the shout out to Taylor for being a technical founder, because if she needs it, she can build it herself, which is such a valuable skill to have. My mom and I did not have that skill. We had the business knowledge and that sort of thing. And so we made our business work with $250,000 of capital over the course of that first tranche of time, which if you break that down by year, it's not much money at all. Then we were able to raise a significant round of funding, which was $1 million, and deploy that capital over the course of 2019. But what we recognized, what we know now in hindsight is, although it's exciting to raise capital and think that you're going to like start to grow your business and whatnot, that's not actually what happens, because this is something that I feel like affects founders of color and women, because it takes us sometimes so long to raise capital for our business. If we're going that route, basically when you get that first infusion of capital, you have to go back and fix everything that you did with no money, because essentially what my mom and I had done was built a company off of our hustle and not process. And for a company to scale, you need process behind hustle. And so that's what we did over the course of 2019. Started to build our team, refined and relaunched our technology, all of that. And then when we got to 2020, we were like, okay, things are looking good. We're tracking well. And then on March 11th, that was the day that everything started to get real for everyone in 2020. And we had a product that only at that point serviced the live events market. So literally market disappeared overnight. And so the interesting thing is, we already knew what to do. We already knew how to operate with essentially no budget. So basically go back to being broke. And so we audited all of our spending and we cut everything that was not absolutely necessary. And then very quickly got to work on a virtual version of our software. It was interesting because we knew virtual was going to be a part of our software at some point, just because people were telecommuting at a greater rate than they had before at the beginning, or before the pandemic even started. People were doing online classes at a greater rate than they had before. So we knew it was coming. We were just planning for it in October, post March. But as a startup, you're agile, you can pivot quickly. And so we rolled out the virtual version of our software. We're able to prove its value and, gaining customers on that side of the software, which enabled us to raise another round. So now, we're at a place where we are, basically we're going through the process of kind of rebranding, relaunching our software to meet a new market need, which is hybrid. The world is never going to be the same after this. Like, people are going to go back to meeting live, but there's going to be a virtual component to almost everything we do going forward, I believe, because people now know that it's possible. And so now our business has to adjust for that new normal, this new market need that we serve. But also in doing that, we're lucky, and we've been able to start the process to build out a team, the first that we've had like in the whole course of our business. So that's exciting. And then also just reaching new markets. So, while we had to adjust, I think the constant state of entrepreneurship is like cautious optimism, also understanding that you need to be able to fail fast and pivot quickly all the time.
Very nice, very true. Taylor, a question more about your path along the way when you were building your business. Was there anything or anyone that stood in your way? Did you have any challenges or obstacles that you faced, and what did you do to overcome?
Yeah, when was there not obstacles? Yeah, I mean, so starting the business 10 years ago, just the landscape was completely different. And so as far as resources that were available and trying to figure out how to get started, a lot of the programs that we as a company promote in Birmingham and recommend to entrepreneurs, and that Tech Birmingham recommends, just didn't exist in that time. And so there was a lot of just kind of fumbling around and figuring out how to make it work. But there was also something rewarding about starting a business and seeing these programs start and seeing other female entrepreneurs enter the market, other startup founders, and see these businesses work together to solve problems. And all of the startup founders that would get together to say, here's what's happening in my business. Can you tell me the issues you're having, and try to work through those things? Because I really do think that there are constantly obstacles. 2020 is obviously a very clear example of that. Like a lot of people and like a lot of teams, it was a really emotional year for our team. We consider ourselves really lucky because we kind of were in the middle, where we had clients who were negatively affected, and we had clients whose were in kind of logistics, supply chain, and other and healthcare industries that grew. But in any circumstance, regardless of who we were talking to, it was a very emotional, impactful conversation to try to help them navigate the roadblocks that they were getting into. And the consistent thing that I would hear from our team was everything was an emergency. In 2020, every time that we would get a phone call, it wasn't, hey, yes, let us help you figure this out and let us get a plan together. It was, something's on fire and we've got to figure out what to do immediately, and how are we going to address this before the end of the day. Because it was really trying to help people keep help companies pivot, help them keep their business going, or help them expand the way that they needed to stay relevant in the changes in the market. And I think what really prepared us for that was everything we had gone through as a company to do that before. I really liked Ashlee's comment on, when you're getting started, there's a lot of hustle that goes into being an entrepreneur, where you're just, I'm trying to do everything that I can to make it work. And then you've got to start adding process into the business. And I completely felt like 2020 was a lot of, okay, process is out of the window for a while. We've just got to hustle to see what we can do to kind of get to the next stage. So like for a lot of companies, it was a challenging year, and I don't think 2021 has been the light switch that some of us hoped for it to be. I mean, there's still a lot of challenges to come.
Absolutely. Let's talk a little bit about networking. Annie, let's go with you first. How do you, or did you choose your networking groups? And for those who are considering opening new businesses, do you have any suggestions of groups that they should join?
So first I will say, I think we need to understand what networking is and what it is not. So networking at the end of the day is about building relationships and creating leads and opportunities for your business. I mean, if those things were not possible, none of us would have time to be networking, because we're all working on our businesses, or we're doing something else in our lives. And so I think people need to be really clear about that. The other thing I would say is, as a small business, and I think regardless whether you're small, medium, or large, networking is really, really key. It's very important to have those relationships, to do what Taylor was talking about earlier, meeting with people and understanding what they're doing to solve problems, or what they did to solve some of the same problems that you are encountering at this stage in your business. So all of those things are really important. But at the same time, we have to be very selective. Networking will consume all of your time if you let it. You will find yourself involved in attending every kind of event and you're actually not working on your business. So you have to be very selective. You have to measure the return on investment. Are you getting what you need from this networking opportunity? Is this group benefiting you? And the ROI is not just money. Oftentimes it is personal or professional development as well. Are you getting answers to solutions? Are you understanding how other people are handling their business? Is it just a growth opportunity for you? I mean, Jessica can speak to that. You know, she works with an organization that puts on a lot of different training and professional development kinds of programs. And that is considered to be a form of networking. The other thing I would say is networking is an opportunity for partnerships. In my business, partnerships are absolutely necessary because we are, for the most part, a referral-based business. The services that we offer, people are not Googling to find out who's doing what we're doing. They're talking with their colleagues to understand who handled this solution for you, who provided this type of service for you. So building partnerships with larger companies or companies who have synergies are very important for us. And we do that through networking. I think that, you know, the second part of your question, what organizations should companies or businesses be a part of, or individuals, I should say? You know, Taylor spoke to a lot of that. I think that we are all fortunate to be associated or to live in the city of Birmingham, which is an entrepreneurial city. So if you're going to be an entrepreneur, Birmingham is a great place to be. And there are a lot of great organizations, and they've grown a lot over the last 10 years, but you know, my business turns 14 this year. So even in those days, as one might say, there were a lot of organizations, but definitely Tech Birmingham, I would say definitely start there because it has tentacles that feed into many of the other organizations in the city. I think industry associations, depending on what your business is about, you definitely need to be a part of those industry associations. I think if you're a woman, you need to be a part of women's groups. You need to understand the challenges that people who look like you are facing and how they have overcome those things. So there are many opportunities to network, but be selective.
Very good advice. Ashlee, I wanted to ask you, because you did say that your mother was and is a great partner of yours. Who was your role model and why?
It's definitely going to be my mom. And I mean, reason being is pretty simple. Like, you know, like I'm like so many reasons. So I have always had my compass point due north. I have always known what it looks like to be a strong woman, what that looks like, what it feels like in front of people, behind the scenes, all the work that it actually takes. You know, my mom and I, we make good partners because we've like been together this whole time. Like, I know that my mom is the person who has always had my back through every course of my life. There was a stint in there where she was a single mom. I then watched her grow a blended family with all kind of kids, and she was working nights at Ford, went back and got her master's degree. I saw the power of education while you're working, all of that. You know, it completely changed our family dynamic. I saw my mom in the role of primary breadwinner in the household. So I've always had that image of a strong woman, what it takes to be a strong woman. You know, my mom's career before she got into Mixtroz was primarily based in manufacturing. So oftentimes she was the only woman, certainly the only woman of color at the table. And I watched her do that with such, you know, poise and grace, but also she doesn't take nonsense. And I believe that's so important. You know, she guided me through my career when I was working in it. She always gave me very her advice was just always pointed. Like, it was never like, you're my daughter, so you can get away with these things. It was, no, what you did was not correct. Here's how to fix that problem, or whatever the case was. So I have always had that throughout my life. And, I take that, also the other professional women in my family, so I've always just had that in my family to look at. I mean, certainly there are people outside of that, but these are the people that I go to day to day. So I think it was only natural then that my mom and I went on to become business partners. And I think people ask me about that often, like, oh my gosh, you work with your mom. What is that like? And it has ups and downs. Like, I don't want to give people the impression that it's like every day is sunshine and roses and we're just like sitting over here skipping and agreeing on everything. It's definitely not like that. I would say our situation much improved when we started living at different residences, because for some time we did like share a residence. But when we started to have that degree of separation, it was definitely good and welcome. But, at the same time, my mom and I have taken the opportunity to do things like personality assessments and whatnot, so we understand one another on a level of not just she's my mom, but this is the human that she is. And I appreciate her for that and what she brings to the table in addition to being my mom. So that is one of the many reasons that she is the person that I look to. That, and if you've met her, she's funny.
That adds a lot. So Ashlee, being you and your mom are really good partners, how do you, or both of you, keep yourself and your staff motivated, especially during times like that?
Yeah, I mean, we're growing our team for the first time. So this is like a learning curve there. It's so exciting to have things happen when your team's expanding and growth is happening. But like, as people say, more money, more problems. And so it's like, you have to pay attention to that the culture that you're building in the company from a very early point to set the tone. So like, for the first 5 years of our business, it was literally my mom and I and like some 1099 hands. And today we just have different things to consider and implement into our business to make it work the way it should. We have completely remote teams. So we have to make the effort to get time on the calendar with people, to be one-to-one, and make sure we're not just asking them questions about, work. Like, how is your life going? How are things at home? How are your kids? How is at-home schooling going? So we're a business that's built on the power of human connectivity. And we don't forget that when we're talking to the wonderful people who work for us. Like, we want to know them. We make it our business to know them, to be involved, to understand when their child is having a birthday coming up, that sort of thing. So, I think that is really important, to know the human, behind the work that is going on as well.
Taylor, you talked a little bit about how you started your company and you had a partner at the very beginning to help you launch that. But how do you select your employees? So, or your team, and how do they strategically help you grow?
So I feel like I have been extremely fortunate with the partners that I have and with the team members that we have over the years. In some ways too fortunate, because we have had very little issues with the hires that we've made over the years. And so anytime that we've had an issue that's come up, it's definitely been a growing opportunity for us as partners and as a company to determine. But as far as how we select people, I think a lot of things Ashlee just said applies to this. It's really getting to know the person. Like, you first, like, establishing that they can do the work that you need them to do and that they can fulfill the role. And I think that there's a lot of different professional options to do that well. So if we're hiring an engineer, we have a process down for that. And we're going to be able to determine pretty quickly if they can do the work that we need them to do for that role. But I think the next layer, and possibly the more important layer after that, comes with, okay, who is this person that we're hiring? And what are they wanting out of this role with us? What are they wanting out of their career? What are their expectations on a day-to-day basis? And how are they really going to fit in to our company? And is that going to be a good fit both ways? One thing that I have found that works really well is that our team has accused me of like painting the worst possible light of what their role is going to be coming into it. And so instead of like taking the position of making it look as good as possible, I would talk about the things that I felt like we were doing poorly, and specifically like why we were hiring for that role, and what we felt like we had done wrong that led to the point of us being like, we've really got to have the skill set, and any kind of issues that we feel like could come from that new team member would be involved in. And I've found that that's extremely helpful, because if they know going into it, and we've been really upfront about the issues that we're having and kind of the cons of that role and where the problems are, then once they come into the role and something goes wrong, or they have to work on some of that dirty laundry, they know that going into it, and they kind of have those expectations set. So the thing that I do think that that's played an important role in us being able to establish a good team is just being extremely transparent about the company, what our weaknesses are, and why we need help in that area. And that's really helped to put us in a good position as we're onboarding new team members. And then likewise, I have 3 partners in MotionMobs, and so when we are making decisions together, so far we've never had an issue where we couldn't all agree together. And a big part of that is just being transparent and saying, here's what we need to do for the business and here's why. And typically if one of us says, no, I disagree, I don't think we're considering this, they're usually right. And so then we're talking through kind of what we haven't considered and the best way to approach that. But I really think the transparency piece is important. And of course, you need to make sure that the person that you're hiring in that role has the skill set that is needed to fulfill the task at hand and the jobs that need to be done for the company.
Absolutely. So we've got just a couple of minutes, but I think one very important question is, as leaders, business owners, it's a lot of work. In addition to taking care of family, do you have any time for fun? And we can start with Ashlee.
Oh, you raised such a good question. So, so the pandemic was interesting for me. So so just to give everybody context, I'm 33. I am not married. I don't have any kids. I now have a dog who has stepped into that role a little bit, and I own a business with my mom. So like that is an interesting place to be in, specifically in the area of the country that we're in, because I feel like a lot of people who are my age, you know, they have children, they're married, like this sort of thing. So the pandemic particularly was a very interesting time. As I reflected on the course of 2020, I realized there was like a 6-month period where literally all I did was wake up, work, break for workout, work some more, and go to bed. That was it, because I was totally social distancing. I was trying to keep everybody safe and healthy. You know, even my parents, you know, my stepfather's a little older. So like, I just didn't want to, you know, open up the chance for anything. And so then what happened is when I got to 2021, I was like, oh my gosh, you're tired. And it's because you were a hermit for 6 months and all you did was work. So when you're an entrepreneur, you have to actively make time to do things outside of being an entrepreneur. You have to actively seek joy. You know, being an entrepreneur is like a roller coaster of emotions. Like some days I wake up and I'm like, we're going to conquer the world. Other days I wake up and I was like, oh, this is going to fail. And I swear some days it's like hour by hour, I'm having those emotions. And so it is important to like actively seek joy, new experiences, those things. And remember that if you're better as a human, you're going to be better at your work. So it's important to balance and make times for both of those things. I am like in a relationship now for the first time for like 5 years. And I had a point where I felt like I was cheating on my new partner with Mixtroz or vice versa. And so like, I really had to come to terms with that. You can have both. You can be successful in your career, and you can also be successful in your personal life. But again, it takes action every day, and it takes effort and thinking about it. And honestly, one of the things that I can't say enough about, so Carrie and I, we have a therapist. It's like the same woman, but she speaks to us at different times, and we found this to be very helpful. So number one, I'm a big advocate of mental health and seeking out help where you need it. And so, to dispel just some of the, I don't even know, like the tabooness that I guess it talks about, like therapy and having a therapist. And I'm so glad a lot of that is going away these days, but it is so important to make that time. Like, I love the time that I get with this woman. Her name is Jill. She, just Jill hears everything. Like, now let's unpack that. And it's so wonderful to be able to do it with a neutral party. Also, we found it so helpful that, like, I don't have to explain my mom to Jill because she knows us both, and she can help reframe things for me. So I'm like, oh, she didn't mean that, she meant this. So all that's to say is, to have the balance, you have to work at it. It is never going to just happen.
That's great advice. So my last question is, Annie, if you had to do it all over again, what would you do different? Would you do anything different?
Wow, that is a really good question. So yes, I would probably do a lot of things different. But to narrow it down to just a couple of things, for me, like Ashlee referred to earlier, I'm a process structured kind of person, which is kind of what I do in my business too. So it goes really well. I tell people that project management for me is not just a job, it's in my DNA. And that's true. But I would probably spend more time understanding the business side, really understanding what it is to be an entrepreneur and doing what I tell my clients to do these days, and actually having more of a strategic plan and following that plan, but also understanding that I needed to be nimble and to pivot and all of those things. So I, like a lot of people, got into my business because of my passion for what I do, because I'm really good at what I do, because I could see the benefits that my clients would have. And so that passion can sometimes push you in a direction or push you too far if not checked. And it's not necessarily a good thing. So I would definitely try to balance my passion and what I wanted to accomplish from a business standpoint with what it really means to run a business, and being more grounded from that standpoint, and knowing when I needed to shift and pivot from that standpoint, understand that a little bit better. Also want to speak to just quickly the last question you asked about balance. Clearly, I have no balance in my life. I am a workaholic, and as Ashlee said, the pandemic has made it so much worse. So I am having to reel that in and get it into check as well. But even before the pandemic, it was a struggle for me, even though I still had a lot of fun and traveled a lot. But a couple of things I would say are important. Surround yourself with other entrepreneurs. I have great, wonderful friends who are entrepreneurs. And so we all have to work when we're traveling, but we work and we have fun as well. When I'm traveling with my family, who almost forbids me to work when we're traveling together or hanging out, find some place to still do what you need to do, whether it's getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning or 4 o'clock in the morning to do your work, or as I said to a friend of mine the other day, hiding behind a shoe rack in the shoe store to get done what you need to do. You have to figure out, as Ashlee said, how to make it happen. And it is possible to have both.
That's very, very good to know, because I'm sure we're all struggling in some way. So I think we got just a few minutes left. And Christina, do you want to open it up for questions? How do you want to handle that?
Yes. If you have any questions for our panelists, please either throw them in the Q&A or in the chat, and we will start moderating that. It looks like you've got some great feedback here. Billy shared, Ashlee, that that's an amazing description of your role model. As a mom and a daughter, love everything about that. That relationship truly is inspiring. And I hope someday to have a relationship like that with my girls. But that was awesome. Let's see. I've gotten a lot of text saying that this is a very inspiring program. I think, you know, all of you are pioneers and trailblazers in your respective rights, and the things that you have done for this community have certainly made the path easier for those who are going to come after you. So thank you for the hard work and dedication you all have put into you know, building up your own businesses, but also becoming role models for other women in our community so that they can rise up and, you know, start their own businesses and become big problem solvers here in our community. Let's see, Justin says, great panel. Thanks everyone for sharing your insights. Learned a lot. Julie says, thanks for inspiring us today. Does anyone in the peanut gallery have any questions? Let's see, Brenda says, excellent job. Brenda's also another entrepreneur here in town. She's doing an excellent job as well. Let's see. All right. Well, I have a question. What's on the horizon for, you know, for future casting? Anything that we need to look out on the horizon for in your businesses?
Well, I'll say I'm rebranding, so I'm super excited about that. Those are things that speak to my soul. So the process of going through a product that you've had for a while and like overhauling every piece of it to fit, you know, what the world, the customer needs now, is exciting and kind of invigorating. And that's where I have my head down, very focused on right now. Also, I'm currently participating in Founder University by Google, and I have to say it's like I literally like have homework. Like so like in addition to like whatever I'm doing for Mixtroz, like I have a homework for them. So that's been an interesting experience, but super value added. So that's on my personal upcoming radar.
Oh, wow. Well, that's
I would add, Christina, just very quickly, as Ashlee said when we first got started, you know, moving forward, the new normal or whatever we want to call it is going to have a big virtual aspect. And as she said, also, she saw that coming. They saw it coming in their business. We saw it coming in ours. So we were moving down that path before the shutdown and the pandemic and so forth. But for us, we are also moving very much into the digital space and really creating or productizing our services to make them more easily available to our clients versus us having to be there in person and on site to achieve whatever the goal is.
I would say an interesting thing that has changed for us is that we've been working on, we've always worked on healthcare and medical projects, but we've worked on significantly more since the pandemic. And we're excited about that because we're excited about our role in the technology side, but we're also excited about the medical researchers and companies who are innovating in this space to try to help achieve better patient outcomes. And so with everything that everyone has seen from the pandemic and just with everyone's knows someone who I think has been affected by this. And so it's been really rewarding for us to be able to talk to people who are on the front lines of the research of trying to figure out how we can put families and individuals, patients in a better position. And so those projects have been really rewarding for us. And it has been kind of a silver lining to be able to work on the technology side of some of those healthcare projects.
Well, thank you. Let's see, we did get a question from Melissa. For Annie, I'm an application developer, but a lot of times I fill a project management or organizational role on my team. What resources or tools do you prefer to help with those types of tasks? Thank you, Ashlee, for putting in your toolkit for her to see too.
So I think that is very traditional that, you have application developers or business people fulfilling the role as project managers or project leads or whatever. So if you go to our website, there are a lot of tools there where you can just download the guide where we talk about ensuring, or if you're a project manager, making sure that you have a methodology in place. And the methodology that we have, you can customize it. So maybe your organization is not that structured or not that formal, so you don't want to use a full-fledged methodology. We also have a toolkit or a playbook, as we refer to it, that has a lot of the templates that you need to manage a project. And again, you can choose those templates that work best for your organization, depending on where you are in your maturity from a project management standpoint. So there are, I think, ensuring that you understand how your organization functions from a methodology standpoint, and making sure that you have the documentation is really important to managing your project, keeping it in check, communicating with the right people, and so forth.
Well, thank you. All right. Well, we are actually over time now. So thank you everyone for coming and joining us today. We have another BWIT April 14th, and that one will be a small group empowerment program. And then we've got other events that are coming on. We'll send that in the follow-up. Thank you for our panel. Thank you to our panelists. Thank you, Ashlee and Annie and Taylor. Thank you for giving us your time and your insight and just all of the inspiration that came behind all the hard work that you all have put in. You certainly have become pillars in our community. And so thank you for spending time with us. So thank you again, everyone, for joining us, and we will see you again next month.
Thank you all very much. You have a blessed day.